A major Hollywood director once walked onto a soundstage and made a decision that stunned everyone in the room. On the very first day of shooting, he dismissed his entire visual effects team. No second chances, no hesitation. His goal was simple but extreme: make a gothic horror film using only techniques that existed before the 20th century. No computers. No modern shortcuts. Just raw, handcrafted illusion. What followed was chaos, experimentation, and one of the boldest filmmaking gambles of its era. And somehow it worked. This is the story of how that film was made. The opening battle alone sets the tone. Instead of realistic combat, the sequence unfolds like a nightmare from ancient legend. Silhouettes clash against glowing red skies. Spears pierce shadows. Figures move like myths instead of men. There were no digital effects behind it. No large-scale stunt choreography. Instead, the filmmakers turned to traditional puppetry. Using cutouts, miniatures, and backlit screens, they created a war entirely out of shadows. Every movement was carefully choreographed by hand, giving the scene a timeless, almost dreamlike quality. It feels less like history and more like a story whispered through generations. That philosophy carried into every part of production. The director believed that older techniques had something modern filmmaking often lacked: texture, imperfection, and a strange kind of honesty. When audiences can feel how something is made, it becomes more real, not less. But that commitment came at a cost. The lead actor, tasked with bringing the legendary vampire to life, endured extreme physical strain. One of his most iconic looks involved a suit of armor weighing over 40 pounds. It wasn't just heavy, it was suffocating. Under hot lights, during long shooting days, the costume trapped heat and restricted movement. Every step became effort. Every scene became endurance. But that discomfort added something to the performance. The character felt burdened, ancient, weighed down by centuries. The costume wasn't just visual, it became emotional. Not every challenge was physical. Some casting choices raised eyebrows from the start. One actor, already exhausted from multiple back-to-back projects, stepped into a demanding role that required precision and restraint. Fatigue followed him onto set, affecting both his energy and his performance. Still, he showed up, delivered his lines, and carried through the production professionally, even as the pressure mounted. Meanwhile, the film's most unsettling effects came from surprisingly simple tricks. At one point, the vampire's shadow begins moving on its own, separate from his body. It gestures, reaches, almost acts independently. There's no digital wizardry behind it. The illusion was created using multiple performers and carefully controlled lighting. While the main actor moved naturally, others mimicked different motions just out of frame, casting unnatural shadows. It's subtle but deeply disturbing. Another eerie effect involved filming scenes in reverse. Actors performed their movements backward, walking, reacting, even interacting. Then the footage was flipped. The result is movement that feels almost right but not quite. Smooth in a way that feels unnatural. It creates a quiet sense of unease that's hard to explain, but impossible to ignore. Even large-scale visuals relied on old-school methods. A sweeping shot of a train crossing a vast landscape looks massive and cinematic. In reality, it was a miniature. Carefully built, precisely lit, and filmed with forced perspective, it created the illusion of scale without ever needing modern effects. It's proof that creativity often thrives under limitation. But not everything on set was controlled so carefully. The production used enormous amounts of practical blood effects, far more than expected. Tubes malfunctioned. Pumps misfired. Scenes turned messy, unpredictable, and sometimes difficult to manage. Actors were drenched unexpectedly. Sets became slippery. Continuity became a nightmare. Instead of trying to control the chaos, the director leaned into it. The unpredictability made the horror feel more physical, more immediate, and sometimes even more real. In one particularly intense scene, a live animal was used instead of a safer alternative. Its behavior couldn't be fully controlled, and the tension on set was genuine. The fear captured on camera wasn't entirely acting. Moments like that added a layer of authenticity that's almost impossible to replicate. Behind the scenes, innovation came from unexpected places. Mechanical rigs, built with gears and pulleys, created unnatural movements that made characters seem to float or shift in impossible ways. These weren't high-tech solutions. They were handmade, often built overnight to solve problems no one else could crack. The film also pushed actors emotionally. Instead of standard rehearsals, the cast went through intense preparation designed to break down their usual habits. The goal wasn't realism, it was something more theatrical, more heightened. Some actors found it freeing. Others found it exhausting. But that tension, both on and off screen, fed directly into the performances. Even relationships between actors influenced the final result. In one case, two leads maintained a noticeable distance from each other off camera. They weren't hostile, just disconnected. That lack of warmth translated into their scenes, adding a sense of longing and emotional separation that fit the story in unexpected ways. Sometimes what feels like a problem becomes part of the magic. There were also moments of pure spontaneity. In one key scene, an unscripted moment between two characters was allowed to play out. The director didn't cut. The actors followed instinct. That moment stayed in the final film, and became one of its most memorable. Not everything made it, though. At one point, extensive narration was recorded to give insight into the main character's inner thoughts. But it was ultimately removed. The concern was that revealing too much too early would weaken the mystery. And mystery was essential. Even the film's ending didn't come easily. Early test audiences reacted negatively. Loudly. The response forced a rethink of the final moments. Adjustments were made, balancing artistic vision with audience expectations. The revised ending became one of the film's defining strengths. And in the end, the gamble paid off.